Uh, Welcome in to the RBLR Rowdies show. My name is Eureka Wheeler, and I am the producer here. For some of you might be tuning in to this for the first time because we are honoring a couple of our friends who have unfortunately passed away. That meant so much to us here in the Rowdies community, and I wanted to take the time before we do our normal weekly show and bring together James Knowles, Carlos Rueda, and myself to honor the life and the legacy of our friends. So first, we did lose two people, and I know everyone knows the first one so much. Matt Cox, beloved podcaster and friend, and just Rowdy's fan through and through. Well, we did also lose Brian McLaughlin just a week or two prior to that, and I'm not sure how much the news did travel about that one, but he ran the Rowdy's Observer account that has been around since we've been around, and I even, to be honest with you, I think it even predates us when it was at its peak of moving around, but with Brian McLaughlin and Matt Cox, I kind of wanted to have us all maybe share some of the memory or a story and just kind of honor their life and their legacy, to maybe to share with our community. We've all had a Matt Cox story or a Brian McLaughlin story. We all have these wonderful outpourings when the news did break that Matt unfortunately is no longer with us. So instead of just having it be a thread on social media, I think it's good for us to get it out, but also for other people in our community to kind of hear and see more friendly faces telling more good things about our great friends. So James, I guess I'll pass the baton to you. Is there did you have what are your thoughts about Matt as overall, and was there any stories you wanted to share with us?
There is a story that I can share related to Matt for sure, and I'm not treading any new ground by saying that he was one of those people who was a friend to all, knew no strangers, that type of deal. I really think that was Matt Cox, and I'm trying as much as I can not to make this about me. I just want to provide a slight bit of context for the story. When we started podcasting at RBLR Sports related to the Rowdies, I reached out to Eureka, and obviously I started doing the podcasting here. That was when Unused Substitutes was still going. And I was brand new to doing any of this, so I didn't really know my way around either the podcasting or literally the inside of the stadium, that is. And when I went down there, when I was supposed to have a press conference, Matt was there. And this was before I had actually really got to speak with him all that much or anything. And he had, every right to look at somebody who was working on another podcast while he was working on a podcast for the Rowdies and be like, "What are you doing here? Why, I'm not your friend." But no one at Unused has ever been like that, by the way. But Matt Cox, that moment, he was, he helped me out literally in walking through the underbelly of the stadium to get to where they do the post-game press conferences. And so he was being friendly in a situation where he probably had no reason to be friendly. And if anything, might have even had a reason to be a little hostile, but that's not who he was. I had the pleasure, obviously, of speaking with him more after that, and said hi every time that I passed him in the stadium and everything. So like I said, Matt was a friend to all and knew no strangers. I really know that much, even from the limited time that I got to hang out with him. But yeah, he's a great guy, and this is all for him and his family, of course, his family and friends. And that's all that I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, Carlos. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many stories with Matt. He's always like a bright smile in the stadium, first of all, in the Ralph's Mob section or wherever he was standing during COVID. Him and Dan would take over the hill over there, and that became a talking point on their podcast for a while. And, by the way, that was one of those things where when I was, 13, and I went to one of my earlier Rowdies away games. This was Fort Lauderdale Strikers. It was the last Fort Lauderdale Strikers game, like as a team, that we would play against them. It was down in that cricket ground that there was like maybe 1,000 people there. So it was just this really intimate atmosphere, and a large chunk of them were Rowdies fans. I remember being, I've been a pretty shy teenager. I was 13, finding my way around the Rowdies community. I fell in love with this club, and one of the first, actually the only like place I could get, Rowdies information, Rowdies content during the week was with Dan and Matt. So it was awesome hearing them every week. And I mean, I never really got to share this with Matt too much because I wouldn't run into him as often now, as I started college and everything, and started leaving Tampa a bit more. But it was always so fun because I started settling into being a teenager. I listened to this every week, and getting in my car and driving to school for the first time. And high school was filled with Unused Substitutes podcast content. Like this is all Dan and Matt, and have quite literally been a part of my teenage years, and they probably don't even know it, to the extent that I wish Dan knows hopefully now, and Matt hopefully, or I wish I was able to share that with him sooner. But I mean, just you take it for granted, the content that they were producing. Truly, like, and Matt, like, and we talk about him obviously being a trailblazer in the Rowdies podcast world, but I mean, it was one of the earlier ones in the world of U.S. soccer. I mean, I don't think that gets talked about enough as well. Truly a trailblazer in that sense, and set a trend. I mean, now every team in the U.S. and has one or two podcasts covering them now. And that was, a trend that Matt and Dan were able to start. So Matt, truly influential in the world of lower league soccer. And I was just so happy to be able to share some time with him when I was around the stadium. Like, just, I don't take that for granted now, obviously. And I mentioned that Fort Lauderdale game because, again, I was 13, maybe it just turned 14. It was just such a warm presence to run into, because I remember, I think this might have been one of the first times I ran into him in person after listening to the podcast pretty regularly. And I felt like, obviously knowing what I know now and how the Rowdies community works, we're all just a bunch of friends. But at the time I was a kid running into this guy I'd listen to every week. I was like, hey, like, I listen to you every week. This is so weird. Like, he was like this little celebrity to me. And it was this awesome experience for me being able to chat with him for the first time in person. Obviously growing up, literally growing up in Outlaying around the Rowdies, around Ralph's Mob, and Dan and Matt were always part of that. And Matt's smile was always just a huge welcoming presence in my life. I know it was so uncomfortable for me when I had my car for the first time and I was able to go to games by myself when I needed to, when I couldn't bring a friend, or, any family couldn't come. I would always find myself around Ralph's Mob, always chatting with whoever was around. But Matt was always one of those people I was willing to welcome me to the stands, even if I felt a little uncomfortable as a kid over there, So it was, I don't take any of that for granted. And again, I'm just so happy I was able to spend the time I did have in the same space as Matt. So obviously a huge inspiration. And I don't think I'd be, putting words in Eureka's mouth by saying that Matt was a huge inspiration to all of us and to the reason like this podcast exists today. Certainly, like, one of the reasons I, was excited by the fact that Eureka reached out to me one day and said, hey, we need another co-host for the Rowdies podcast. And never having done anything like this, I was just thrilled at the opportunity to be able to add some more content to the world like Matt, and just so happy again that I was able to spend the time I did have with him. So he'll be missed. I mean, he's one of those faces that's definitely going to be missed around the stadium. Everyone's going to feel that kind of missing space in the stadium for a while. I think that's okay. I think it's nice that we'll be able to collectively feel that when we go to the stadium. He'll certainly be remembered, obviously outside of the games as well. But for us and for the purposes of this podcast, his presence will absolutely be felt at the stadium. So rest in peace to Matt Cox, and obviously all of my prayers go out to his family in this time. And again, a shout out to Brian as well. Brian was just like another presence in the Tampa Bay sports world. Huge Rowdies fan. Just a lovely guy I would run into every once in a while. And he covered Jesuit sports. He would cover like my high school. He'd cover my friends in high school. And it was just so cool seeing my friends in high school getting national media coverage. It was awesome. It was awesome. So it's really, really great to have someone with his presence at the Rowdies games, talking about the Rowdies, retweeting Rowdies stuff. Like, again, just another really, really influential face in this world that we're in that, unfortunately, I think has gone too soon. So again, prayers out to all of his family as well. But this is obviously a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can just honor both their memories by being at the stadium, remembering them and cheering for the teams that they loved. And hopefully we can do Matt a little bit of justice and honor him a bit by talking about the Rowdies for another hour or so today.
Yeah. I love it, man. Yeah. I think to frame it through the prism of us like James said, it isn't to make it about us, but everyone has a Matt Cox story. So I want to make sure that ours is unique and through our prism. So I'll give a couple examples of how much Matt really meant to us. To piggyback off what James said, is when we were literally just getting started and we had one account, we hadn't even broke out like the Rowdies account and the Bucks account and whatever. Matt Cox, I can tell you, because I DM'd him myself, he was our 200th, number 200th follower on Twitter. Okay, which was like our only social media at the time. And I say that to say in context now, we have tens of thousands now if you put together our whole universe. Again, not to say that, but Matt was not just there at the beginning. Like, he was DMing me about, hey, is there anything you need help with? Like, who can I making the important friendships and community building that was necessary for us. Again, like James, he could have been a rival. He could have been a person who did not he wanted to gatekeep, something that was so near and dear to him. And he was not, it just wasn't. Everyone has that same story where Matt was the first person that gave me a big smile and a hug at the stadium. Matt was the first person that showed me this. Matt was the first person that told me this. Matt was the first person to introduce me to this. And we have that exact same story because that's who he was. We did have the opportunity and privilege and honor to work with Matt quite a number of times, and so many more things that were behind the scenes that were this close to coming to fruition. Obviously we are big fans and supporters of the unused substitutes, and that will not change. That we are dedicated to helping them in any way we can from now and in the future. But Matt, actually, one of the last conversations we ever had was when Neil Collins got hired to go to Sacramento, and Matt had slid into my DMs and said, hey, I have a lot of thoughts on that, and would you like to publish them? And of course, I couldn't get hell yes out of my fingers quick enough to that DM, because of course I want Matt Cox's opinion on this, which at the time was the biggest, hugest news that we have. Like, it came out of nowhere. Like, yeah, even I want to know what Matt thinks about that to begin with. And the funnest thing was, through the back and the forth, he shared a story that I am not sure if he said this on the podcast, but I am going to share. It's not huge, but what's funny is, here's Matt. This is Matt Cox. Matt says there's a personal angle to how this is all my fault. These are his words that he says to me, and I'm like, okay, why is Neil Collins in Sacramento your fault, Matt? And he's like, well, I'm reading this verbatim from the DMs that I have. He says, well, a couple of years ago, I went to the Sacramento versus Orlando Open Cup final, and I met up with a bunch of Sacramento fans that I knew from Twitter. I stayed in their hotel and everything. They hooked me up with Sacramento gear, and of course, off we go marching to the match. When who do I run into on the side of the road? Neil frickin' Collins. And Neil and his son are there, and they see Matt. They're in Sacramento versus Orlando, And here's Neil Collins with his son looking at them wide-eyed. You get that Neil Collins, that look that every referee in the world is like scared to see. And he's looking right at Matt, and he goes, "What the hell are you wearing?" and like, I don't know what I would do in that situation, but what Matt said he did is in perfect Matt Cox style. Is he looks right at Neil Collins, the gaffer, and he just says, "Anyone but Orlando, right?" And he goes, "However, Neil Collins, seeing me with my Sacramento gear, planted the seed, and that's why it's my fault." And so,
The ripple effect. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks, Matt, for putting Neil in Sacramento. But anyway, I thought that was just one of the last conversations that we had ever had about collaborating and doing things, but also just being able to joke. Of course, we're bantering back and forth. I called him a few unsavory names for being that seed, but that was the thing is he was a guy that, to his face in a bar or in a DM, like, he would bust your chops. He could take it. He could give it. He was just a, if you want to use the word friend, brother, uncle to so many of us in this community, and it means so much. And I like what Carlos said is our community is feeling this very, very, very much. But when we get the opportunity to be a community together, when we get the chance to be inside of the cathedral that we all shared the space and love, and that he made such a bright spot for us, that's sort of the next thing that I'm looking forward to be able to hug all of our friends and hug all of our Rowdies family members, and know that we're all going through it together. So
absolutely.
I did want to say, yeah, absolutely, Matt did so much for us. Brian too. I can't say enough good things about Brian McLaughlin as well. Very similar story with us is that, we reached out. As we're building community and things like that. I see Rowdies Observer, even though not as active as it might have been at one point. Every once in a while, Brian. But then I found out why. I found out that Brian was this massive, impactful writer in a different space. He was beloved in his own. He had his own community of content and writers, but also the young men that he got to meet and write about and share their stories as they were growing up and growing into the world of American football. And again, just another such a big beloved member of like those communities that are just, if you were friends with him and you're seeing all of the outpouring of love and stories about Brian from his loved ones and his family and friends and everyone. It's just so crazy to think that here's this person that has this massive thing going on the side. He just happened to live in our area. He happened to be in one of our community members, and he would take his kids to the game. He would take his kids and family members to the Rowdies games. And this was his a passion away from working. This was a passion. This was something that he shared with his family. He wanted to bring the kids to the games. He wanted to share that love with everyone. And he was another just jolly, giant, big, welcoming face. He always had a hug and a laugh and a smile and a joke, and it was just joy because he was in a joyful space for him. And of course, Brian McLaughlin, I believe, coined the 3 pints celebration. After every Rowdies win, he would share his 3 pints graphic, and of course, where people are retweeting it, sending him stuff with the 3 pint emojis back at him, and it was just a fun celebration. So I can't thank Brian enough. I can't thank Matt enough for the things that people have seen that they did, and the things that they don't even know that they were crucial elements to.
Yeah.
So again, going forward, I think the way that we can honor them and do the best for them is to continue to have that love, continue to have that joy, continue to have that passion that Matt and Brian had. Carlos, you said it best. I think today the best that we can do is we're going to take the opportunity that they gave us by allowing us to be on the shoulders of their giant personalities, but more importantly, paving the road that we travel weekly. So it's my final thing to say is that as a company, speaking as a producer of this company and this podcast, to say that we will continue to give you the best show that we can for Matt, for Brian, to honor their legacy, to honor them, and I think also to hopefully maybe start the healing process and allow us to all share the love of the thing that we got to love with Matt and Brian. So I'm losing my composure. I'm trying to keep it together for you guys, but James, Carlos, I've been rambling on. Is there any last things you want to say before we continue to honor their legacy?
Just one last thank you to both of them for their presence in our lives and in the stadium, and again, thoughts to their families and the families outside of their families at Lang Stadium.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, to honor Brian, to honor Matt, we will honor them with a moment of silence, and then we will forge on ahead. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Brian. We love you guys.
Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Jones coming at you for the RBLR Sports podcast. We are here tonight to talk a little bit about the Rowdies game. Obviously, we started this on a note that I think was necessary for all of us here at the show. So we appreciate you taking the time to allow us to get our own feelings out. And as we said there, honor the lives of the people that we just discussed, because Brian McLaughlin and Matt Cox, both huge personalities, as we have already mentioned. I don't want to stick too much more to it because I feel like we're taking up space that is not ours to take up. So I'll just leave it there. And we will get into the show. As much as it is a hard break, we will get into the show now that we originally planned, which was just a review of a game and then a preview of a game. But there was obviously something that we had to talk about beforehand. So this past weekend, the Rowdies went away to Las Vegas. And unfortunately, as I'm sure everyone at this point knows, they lost that game. However, they will have another chance on the road as they now play Tulsa in Oklahoma this weekend. Based on the amount of time that we spent with the first part of this podcast and the amount of time that we will spend in an upcoming part, we are not going to cover a ton of the recap because there ultimately won't be that much time, but we will spend a little bit more time on the preview of the Tulsa game. Please like and subscribe to us on YouTube, any major podcast platform. Please follow RBLR Sports on all social medias, just as always. If you would like a little bit more of a recap than this, you can go to our website or obviously all of our social medias where it was posted. I did a quick recap article, and obviously that will go a little bit longer than what we're going to do here. But Carlos, let's get into it. I'll just read the lineup here, quick standings update, which is not that much, and then we'll do very, very quick questions. In goal, we had Nico Campisi making his debut for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. At the back was Aaron Guillen, Robert Castellanos, and Lawrence Wyke. Across the midfield was Blake Bodley, Danny Crisostomo, Cammy McPherson, and Pacific Nyangabire. And up top were Ollie Bassett, Manuel Arteaga, and Woobens Pacius, all up in the attacking unit. Despite way better stats, it was ultimately Las Vegas who could sneak one in. I literally mean sneak one in this case. And for a quick standings update now, because it was only one game, the Rowdies are in 9th place in the East. Las Vegas are in 5th for whatever that's worth. It's ultimately not that big of a deal because it is still the first game, as much as we would prefer to be with 3 points. We'll get to that down the road.
Yeah.
Carlos, there is, like I said, not too much that we want to get into here, but just quickly, what happened in this game from your perspective? Should it have gone any differently than it did?
Yeah, this was one of the weird ones, and we'll get into it again later on in an interview coming up with a new Tampa Bay Rowdy, who you'll probably know who it is based on the title of this podcast. We'll get into it with him, talk about why things maybe didn't go the way we wanted it to. But yeah, the numbers, like you said, James, were great on paper. They should produce at least one goal in our favor, but unfortunately they just didn't. We had a couple good looks. I really, really liked how we were ripping some more shots from outside of the box. I loved Ollie's, takes from outside the box. He was letting a couple rip. Nyangabire was driving in a bit more than he would last year, I think, which is promising, and ripped a shot from outside the box that just went wide, ever so wide of that left post. A great look from him. McPherson had a couple of good shots as well. And I mentioned all these because I like that trend that we're kind of letting some shots fly when things aren't really there. And we're not just throwing in useless crosses anymore. We're letting a couple fly from outside the box, which is lovely to see. That's going to produce fruits as we get more comfortable with the lineup and the structure, and the chemistry keeps building up. I think it's one of those things where, honestly, like it maybe should have led to a goal, but I think based on how we looked, I think a loss is unfair to how we played. But I will say I don't think we necessarily outright deserve to win either. I would have considered a draw to be pretty fair to both sides based on our control of the game, our shots and whatnot. But Las Vegas held their ground in their back line. They were making the saves they needed to make. And it looked like that was kind of their game plan, and they did it well. So, the numbers, I think, lie a little bit in that, maybe it was part of Las Vegas's game plan to let those numbers be that way. That being said, I would have liked for a goal to fall for us. Obviously, I'm not convinced that necessarily that we, Robbie said in the postgame quote that we win those 9 out of 10 times. I'm not sure if I'm sold on that either. I think we draw 5 out of 10 of those, maybe, just based on how we played in that one. Not like a ton of great chances either. So, again, I think the loss is unfair to how we played, but I certainly think a draw would have been more fair to both sides here in this one. So, unfortunate, but that's just the way things go sometimes. I will say, just zooming out a little bit, I know it's easy for me to say this because it's a really easy excuse for the first game, but it is the first game of the season. The chemistry might not be there all the way yet. It is what it is. Just not really a ton of great chances, all things considered, with how much of the ball we had.
Yeah, I think that's all relevant. As you said, first game, everybody has either a little bit of catching up to do with what their teammates are like out on the field. Practice is one thing. It is not the same as being in a game. And obviously, maybe even a little bit of first game jitters, at least when I would probably say Nico Campisi's distribution. Obviously, that is where Las Vegas get their goal, unfortunate as it is for us. But, you got to imagine I would put 9 times out of 10 in that instance, he clears it.
Yeah.
That was the one where it actually goes awry, and it went terribly awry, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
But that's the 9 times out of 10 that I'll put my name behind. I think that when I did my own quick recap, the article, I had watched the game. Obviously, we can't watch the replay; it's not on ESPN. So the only thing I could rewatch was the highlights. But I also tried to read through other people's recaps once I put my own out there. I will say John Morrissey at USL Tactics, and then another account at USL Analysis. Both of them had the XG for each team, and obviously Tampa Bay Rowdies had a higher XG. I will say as well, USL Analysis put out several numbers for passes into the final third, passes in the final third, passes into the opposition box, passes within the opposition box, and the Rowdies were blowing those numbers away too. It's just unfortunate that obviously none of those turned into goals. Yeah. So, that's where we are. And Carlos, is there anything else you want to do before we do our man of the match?
No, I mean, I like I said, I don't think there's a ton of takeaways from this one. I think there's a lot of promising takeaways. Like I mentioned, in the midfield, we look pretty solid. I think the wing play is great. I really like. I mean, if you look at the bench, we have some great depth off the bench as well. Like, we had Moon coming off of the bench in the 70th minute, Hilton in the 71st minute, which is incredible players to bring on that late in a game. Nate Worth didn't even touch the field, right? And Forrest Lasso didn't touch the field either. They're kind of easing him back into that. So I think take some solace in the fact that there's just a lot of great players on the bench as well. Great depth already with this squad. If we keep people healthy, hopefully we don't need to dig too deep into that depth. But I think there's a lot of great takeaways. Like the back line, even without Lasso, is incredible. I don't think they really had any issues at all in this game, with the exception of maybe communication error between Guillen and Campisi. I know Campisi is still, settling into the squad, so I don't know how much we can fault him for this one off the bat. I think the chemistry kind of comes along with some more reps, right? Those are ones you want to avoid because it's just kind of basic stuff that you think you'd be able to avoid without ever playing together. You know what I mean? So that's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate first lapse, but I think that should be the last one of those for, in theory, the rest of the season. You only really ever have one of those for the rest for a season. So
at least you get it out of the way early, right?
Yeah. So at least you got it out of the way early. First game of the season, so at least we have that excuse for us. I think that's about all the analysis I can take away from here. Woobens Pacius looks promising. I really, really like what he has to offer this squad. I think, again, it just might take a little bit of settling in and building the chemistry between him and the guys behind him in the midfield.
Yeah.
Once that chemistry gets built up, we kind of get a feel for how those balls are going to fall to him in the attack. I think he'll get a really, really good thing going. I mean, very, 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 very promising from him. I'm really excited for what he could do for this squad. Again, Ollie Bassett as well. Just great.
Yes.
Great. So I'm good outlook despite the 1-0 loss. We should have maybe had at least a goal fall here. So take the positives here, I would say. First game jitters, got out of the way early in a terrible field. Let's just forget about this one and start, racking up the wins.
There we go. All right. Well, let's do our man of the match real fast. As we said, this was going to be a bit of a lightning round before we get to our preview, which follows an interview. So, Carlos, who was your man of the match for this one?
Mine is Ollie Bassett pretty easily. I liked what he had off of the bat for us in this one. Lots of promising things coming from him. I think this one should be, this was a pretty easy one for me. I think we'll have a lot more of these for him if he keeps up this kind of performance and gets a goal every once in a while and assists on a goal every once in a while. I think the link up between him and Pacius and Arteaga is going to be pretty lethal once they figure it out. And maybe we fell out of the top 10 in the power rankings that the USL kind of arbitrarily puts out every week. But I think you'll see us back up there, with Louisville and Charleston very, very quickly.
I think we can manage. Absolutely. My man of the match for this one was Danny Crisostomo. I think that we saw from him some play that was reminiscent of his best games from last season. It wasn't exactly up to that level, but I do think that he's getting back there. That's the idea. Getting back there. and chalk it up to more first game jitters, but still pretty good for a first game, in my opinion.
Definitely.
All right, we will do our ad now. Liking and subscribing is free, but if you think you might need some new threads coming up this year, you can check out our shop. That is shop.rblrsports.com. Right down below my face if you're watching on YouTube. You can use the promo code COYR for 10% off your order. Please do check it out. And we will see you again after this interview. And here we are with our interview with a new Rowdies player, Woobens Pacius. And Woobens, before we started, I know that I just asked you, but I did want to get, for the record, for all the Rowdies fans out there, the first question that we have, first of all, your name is great on paper. I will put that out there, but I just want to make sure that everyone is saying it correctly. How do we pronounce your name correctly? And then what would you prefer people call you when they see you on the field?
Yeah, so my name is Woobens Pacius. And usually people call me Woobs. So for the fans, teammates, coaches, everyone call me Woobs, my friends. So Woobs is perfect for me.
That's awesome. I think, Carlos, you've said this a couple of times, but that's starting 11 all time for names. With the Rowdies, probably in the USL even, but I love it personally. So yeah, that's good to hear. And now we obviously have a fan chant. I know that it reminds me of back when South Africa had a player, Matthew Booth, and all the fans would yell Booth, and it sounded like booing, but nobody was booing. It feels like I want to get a Woobs chant going during the games. That sounds good.
That would be great, actually.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Like James said, this is great to have you on RBLR. Obviously, this is just always fun to chat with, a member of the squad. But I think I always have the most fun chatting with a new member of the Rowdies. We get your perspective about how you got here, get to know a little bit about you. Obviously, you're wearing the jersey on the field, so the fans want to get to know a little bit more about the guy wearing it. So this is really great. So thanks for joining us. There's so much we can go to. There's so many different directions we could take this conversation in so little time. So I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled you're here, and yeah, we can just get right into it if that's okay with everyone.
Perfect.
Yeah. Woobens. So I'm gonna go with Woobs, by the way, for the rest of this interview.
All right, that's perfect. That's great.
I'm gonna go. I'd love to just get a little bit of background about how your playing career ended up here in Tampa Bay with the Tampa Bay Rowdies. I know you started with your time in CPL with Forge, and that took you to Huntsville, where you actually linked up with a now current Rowdy as well, Joey Skinner, for a time. Tell us a little bit about your professional path and how it came to be currently in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so like I said, like you said, I started with Forge FC in the CPL. Before that, I was at CF Montreal Academy from U13 to U20. So I spent my whole time in Montreal at the academy, like I said. And then at 20 years old, I went to Forge in Hamilton, CPL, where I spent 2 years and a half there. It was a great place for me to be. I played a lot of games, a lot of big games. We won 2 championships against Ali Bassett, who's with us now. So I know him. I played against also Pacific, who was at Valor at some point. So yeah, it was good for me, especially for young players. I had a lot of minutes. I was able to play in the CONCACAF League at the time, which is similar to the Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League. We played against Chivas at Azteca. So, big games. And I think it's good for young players to have these type of games. And yeah, after these 2 seasons and a half, I signed with Nashville and Nashville SC. But I was injured. So when I signed, I was injured. I had a pretty tough injury. I had a shin stress fracture. So, I had to do rehab in Nashville. Everything was fine with them to do the rehab. That's why after I went with Huntsville, to get my rhythm back. Where at first it was a bit tough, but when you come back from a long injuries, they always take time to find your rhythm and find yourself again. So I think towards the end of the season it was better for me. I was able to score a few goals. I think I ended the season with 8 goals and 2 assists in maybe 17 games. So I think it was pretty decent. And then yeah, I did a part of the preseason with Nashville, and then I end up here with the Rowdies. And you know, I'm like I said, I'm from CF Montreal, so I know the Rowdies a little bit because CF Montreal, they always do their preseason in Florida, so they
Yeah.
came pretty often here when Drogba was there, all these guys. So I know a lot about the Rowdies, and you know, when I had the opportunity to come here, it was a no brainer for me, especially here in the USL. I think it's one of the top teams in the league. So I think it's a good place for me. And like I said, to be in Tampa in the nice weather is way better than Montreal in the cold. So here I am now.
Yeah. There's no snow to shovel out of your driveway here. I'll
No,
tell you that.
no, no.
That
Yeah.
was an experience for me when I was there, and back in December. It was way too cold for me. I thought the snow was gonna be beautiful, but it was all in my boots, and it was the most uncomfortable in the
It's
world. So,
always it always look good on pictures, but when you
yeah,
actually live in it, it's always a bit.
it gets muddy. Yeah, no.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah.
So, like James said before we started the chat here, we'll revisit in July to see exactly how much you like the Tampa weather. But again, I would still take it 100 times over the incredible cold up there. But that's great. And James and I love talking about the CPL. I mean, it's a really cool, like, up and coming league, and there's a lot of talent over there. And obviously, the Rowdies recognize that. Like you said, a bit of a CPL reunion down here
Yeah, yeah.
for you. So that's really, really great to hear that you're familiar with some of the guys already. And speaking of that, can you tell us a little bit about what it's been like settling in here? Obviously, you've gone a full preseason now. We had our first matchup against Las Vegas, and we'll definitely come back and touch on how that went in a little bit. But tell us a little bit about preseason, how you've settled in, what it's been like being around some, a few at least somewhat familiar faces. But obviously a new place, a new club, new coach. What's that process like been for you in a club like the Rowdies?
Well, I feel like everything was so easy, with the teammates, the coaching staff, the whole organization. Everyone was really nice with me, and they make it seem so easy. So it was pretty good. Like I said, I did a little bit of preseason with Nashville before coming here on loan. So I was starting to get my rhythm, and then I came here with the Rowdies. So yeah, I think it was pretty cool. Like I said, I know a few guys here. Like I said, Ali Bassett, Pacific, Joey Skinner that I played with last year. So all these guys are guys that I knew, and I just feel like it was really easy for me to settle down here, and I think it's a like I said, it's a great city. Tampa is a really nice city. So for me, everything was pretty cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's great to hear. I know it's always a topic of the offseason to see how a team gels together, how that chemistry comes together. I'm sure that's going to be a work in progress still, but it's great to see that you've settled in, at least on your end, pretty quickly. James, take it away. I'm going to start asking way too many questions about CPL, about I have so many questions. Take it away. Take it away.
Well, actually, Carlos, that is a relatively good segue here, because my next question was going to be taking us back a little bit to your days growing up in Canada. And I wanted to ask you about the CPL. But even before I wanted to get into the CPL, my first question for you was more about the Montreal Impact Academy, as it was previously known, because I know that there are 3 MLS clubs in Canada. And so there are 3 places where most players are going to end up if they hit a certain level. But the Toronto FC, Vancouver Whitecaps, and Montreal academies are all fantastic academies as far as I've seen. They are very prolific recently with the players that they're churning out, and a lot of them do end up in the CPL. But I wonder if you could just walk me through the process of getting into the Montreal Academy, and then what it was like and the players that you played with there.
Yeah, so I mean, it was pretty good. Like I said, I got in when I was 13 or 14 years old. It was tryouts, so you would either pay or you were getting invited, and then you would play for maybe a weekend, and then the coaches would see you, and if they're interested, you will keep coming until the last round, and that's what I did. So yeah, it was pretty good. Like you said, I think there's good academies in Canada, TFC, Montreal, and Vancouver. And I think, like you said, they did pretty well in the past few years. You know, for young players or even in general to develop players. And I think it's good for especially for us Canadians, but for everyone. You know, because like you said, you know, I was in Canada, but now I'm with the Rowdies, so it's also good for the teams here in USL or MLS, wherever, as long as you know we can play well there. I think it's good for everyone. And yeah, I think like I said in Montreal, I played with pretty good players. The guys that I know that maybe you guys would know, Ismail Kone, who's now at the Olympique de Marseille.
Yep.
Pretty good friends of mine. So, you know, Karifa Yao now that is at Rhode Island. Uh, and then I have obviously other friends in the CPL and all that, but that you guys might know. I think there's good players that came out of the academy, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are players, the ones that you name, but there are players from Montreal all over the USL at this point, all over
Yeah,
MLS at this point. I know Portland is stocking up on them at the moment, so
yeah,
there,
yeah,
yeah,
literally.
there are a lot of good guys that are making real awesome careers for themselves, and that's really cool to see. The next step in your career, obviously, was your time with Forge, and so to get into the CPL a little bit, I guess I wanted to get your read on the level of play there. I think that a lot of fans down here, we don't have a ton of access to Canadian Premier League games. I personally would watch a ton of those if they were available, but they're usually like once a month. So it's not the best. But I wanted to ask you, compared to the USL, what would you say is if there are any differences? Probably a lot more turf, but if there are any differences, what are those between the Canadian Premier League and then the USL, such as you've seen so far, which of course is only one game?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like you said, it's only one game, so it's a bit difficult to say. But from what I've seen in training with the guys, I think the level is pretty much similar, maybe a bit higher here. To be honest, but you know the league is bigger. We have two conference here in USL of what 10 teams each, I would say, and in CPL it's only 8 teams for now since you know it's a new league. So I think that's a big difference because you know you have way more players. You play against each other less amount of times. You know, in CPL you might play against the same team 3 or 4 times in the year, but
Yeah.
here maybe you're gonna play against them once or twice. So I think that's different. And like you said, also the pitch in Canada with the cold and all that, we play a lot on turf, and here we have the chance to play on grass. So I think it's a really good thing to be able to play on grass. But I would say that those are the most I mean the biggest difference for now. Maybe in 10 games I'll be able to tell you a bit more, but for now I think those are the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean that does make sense. Obviously, it's a small sample size, as they say, but yeah, it's. I just wanted to get your perspective there because the league, like I said, is very interesting because it's so new, and
Mhm.
the fact that it's so new, I'm always very interested to see how teams are coming along with that setup. But I think that the USL and the Canadian Premier League have a lot in common in a lot of ways. So yeah, I just like to keep tabs on it. But Carlos, I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah, yeah. As much as we can keep talking about that, like there's a lot to talk about 'cause it's so fascinating. But Woobens, or sorry, I told you I'm gonna stick with Woobs. Woobs. Let's talk a little bit about now that we're into the season. We have a full regular season, 90 minutes under our belt. Obviously, the result didn't go the way we wanted it to for our first match, but like we said, still plenty of time to build up that chemistry, get the form under where we all like to see it at. I just want to ask you initial thoughts on that first matchup. How would you rate your own performance, the team's performance as a whole, and maybe some areas that stuck out as areas to improve off the bat after a full preseason and a full 90 minutes under our belt in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the result, it's a bit difficult. Honestly, I think we played pretty well. We were in control the whole game, I would say. But we got scored on the mistakes, and sometimes it's football. That's what you need. It's one action, and you might finish with the win. So I think it's a bit harsh for us. But I think we played pretty well. Like I said, we're in control of the game. We're pressing them pretty well too. So we had the ball a lot of time, but they were in a low block, very compact during the whole game. So it's always difficult for us, for teams to score in these type of games, because they sit and they let you have the ball, but as soon as you get closer to the box or to the goal, everyone get really compact. So it was a bit difficult, but it's football. We gotta find solutions. But for a first game, I don't think it's bad. We gotta stay positive, and I'm sure that we're gonna be able to play better games and have the result that we want. For myself, again, for a first game, maybe not my best performance. I don't think it was really bad neither. I think it was, like I said, it's a first game. It was good for me to see the level, to see how it is to be in that U league. So again, like I said, I stay positive. I'm not worried for myself or for the team. I know the level that we have and all the abilities, the quality of the player that we have on the team. So I'm not worried at all. We just have to find, our rhythm, and I'm sure we're gonna be able to win games, score goals, and everyone gonna be happy. Us as a player, you guys as a fans, the organization. So I'm not worried at all about that.
That's great. That's great. I'm glad we touched on the turf in Canada, because there's still plenty of turf around the USL.
Yeah, yeah,
The turf and some okay fields like the
yeah.
one in Las Vegas. So
Hmm.
I know that can be challenging as well. But yeah, I'm glad the attitude's positive. Absolutely. And we'll talk about this, James and I, because yeah, obviously you always want to start the season with an 8-0 win,
Yeah,
and there
yeah,
and blow out whoever you play. But yeah, there's always a bit of breathing room at the beginning, and a lot of space to be comfortable with where we're at. And like I said, it's great to know that the attitude's still positive, obviously, just after one game. We've talked again about the CPL time, plenty of goals with your time in Forge FC. I saw that goal, by the way, when we heard of your signing. That goal within, 2 minutes? It was the fastest goal. It was
yeah,
the fastest goal in CPL
yeah,
history?
yeah. I think it might be. I think it was. I
Yeah,
don't know if it was in the CPL, but for our club at Forge, it was. So
yeah.
yeah, pretty quick.
Pretty
Yeah,
sweet, pretty sweet. So it was exciting to see that we have, some explosive talent up top just off the bat within 2 minutes. I would love a goal within 2 minutes whenever. So
yeah.
feel free to drop one of those whenever. But obviously, we can expect plenty of goals from you. I just want to ask you from your own perspective. Obviously, Rowdies fans, still getting to know a lot of the new guys like yourself on the squad. What would you say Rowdies fans can expect from you as the season progresses? We obviously got a taste of the new talent in preseason. In that Montreal game, I believe, was the only open one. But then, now full 90 minutes with Las Vegas, but just a small sample size still. So looking ahead at however many games we have left, and hopefully, into the playoffs and everything, a deep Open Cup run, Jägermeister Cup run, whatever it is, what can Rowdies fans expect from you in however many games we have left in this early season?
Yeah, I mean, I always give my 100%. I think that's the most important, because sometimes you're gonna have good games, but sometimes you also gonna have bad games. But I think what you can always do is to give your 100%. So maybe you're not gonna be sharp on the ball, but if I have to go press, if I have to help a teammate with a run or to help him to win the ball, I'll always do that. As a striker, I want to score as many goals as I can. So whenever I have the chance to do it, I will. I'm not, I might miss sometimes, but the purpose is to score. So I think that's pretty much me. And also, as a player, I like to play with my teammates. Sometimes as a striker, you want to get selfish, but I like to play with my teammates. For example, with last game, I'll pass the ball to Manu for him to score. I'll pass the ball to anyone for them to score also. So I just want me to do well, but also the team. So, like I said, I think I'm a team player, and I think that's what the fans should expect from me.
That's great. That's great. Last question I'll ask you here before. I'll throw it back to James. 8 goals in Huntsville. 26 goals? Is that what we said in Forge? Looking at Wikipedia's always off by like a couple goals. In those 34 or so goals, what's been your favorite goal you've scored in your time as a professional?
My favorite one, I would say, is the penalty against Cavalry. It was a semifinal of the CPL. This one is my favorite one, not necessarily my best one. I think my best one is the one against Valor. It was a half volley, half turn, so that one was pretty good. But I feel like that PK was really important because it was 1-1 at the time. Both of the teams had a red card. It was semifinal of the CPL, so it was a big game in front of our fans. I think we had 9,000 fans in the stadium. So,
Wow.
to be able to score that goals, I think it was 80th minute. I felt pretty nice after that goal. So I think that's my best one. But like I said, my the one I scored and I think that was the best was that half volley turn. I don't know if you guys saw it. If you have the chance, I think you should. It was a pretty nice one. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you haven't seen that, I believe that was. I don't know if I saw that on like the Rowdies highlight tape that they threw out there during the announcement, but it's on YouTube. It was definitely on a Woobens Pacius, Woobs. It was on a Woobs highlight tape on YouTube somewhere. So go take a look at that for sure. Nice goal. Hopefully, let's get like 1 million of those this year.
Hopefully.
That was awesome. James, take it away.
Yeah, well, I wanted to take it in another realm. I am a big fan of international soccer, and so I wanted to ask you, at least according to Transfer Market, you have a Haitian background, so you have, I guess, the option, ultimately, if you get there, of playing for Canada or Haiti. I wanted to ask, I guess, if you had any preference or any contact from either of those organizations at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in contact with the Haitian national team already. They told me that they were interested. Obviously, for me, I was born in Canada, grew up in Canada, played my whole life in Canada. I think the dream would be to play with the Canadian national team, especially now. I think the national team got way way better than it used to be before, but so it's also more difficult to get in. But we never know how everything's gonna go. So obviously, I think the main goal would be to play with Canada, but we never know. Maybe to be with Haiti, the next World Cup. Um, it might happen. Canada, Mexico, and USA are not in the qualifiers, so it might be easier for a country like Haiti to get that qualification. So, I guess time will tell. But yeah, I have that opportunity to either play for Canada or Haiti. So, I think we'll see in the next few months, years, what is going to be the final choice.
Keeping the doors open. But
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, with the numbers that you've been putting up at all of your spells so far, I can only imagine that somebody's going to be knocking on your door very soon for that. And yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Canada, because I remember when they would go and they have to get to the next round and they only have to get any type of result against Honduras, and they can't do that. Now
Yeah.
it's obviously very different. Times have changed. So
Exactly.
I guess the one last question I have related to that is, Canadian soccer, like you said, has taken these leaps and bounds. I think a lot of that is partly down to these academies that we were just talking about. But can you tell me what the growth of soccer in Canada is like, even just from a fan perspective? Somebody who is seeing this and seeing the women's team reach the World Cup final and win the Olympics, and the men's team make their first World Cup final since the 80s. It's got to be very exciting.
Yeah, it is, and I think that's what the fans want, right? Is to be on the biggest stage. So to be in that last World Cup in 2022, I think a lot of people was watching a soccer game maybe for the first time, and since with for example, the Copa America from last year to be able to, I think they went on semifinal if I'm not mistaken, to play against Argentina, play all these big games, and we had a match. Like, it was not Argentina having the ball the whole game. Canada had their opportunities, they had their chances. So I think it's good for everyone, and obviously, for the players, I think it's good because now people are actually watching in Canada. Before, you would say, "Oh, I'm from Canada." They would be, Canada, usually you play hockey, right? So now it's different. People know that we play soccer, and we play soccer pretty well. So I think it's good, and even for Americans fan, I think it's a a better competition, right? It's always Canada against USA. We saw it in hockey recently, and now to have it in soccer too, I think it's great.
Yeah, I cannot agree more personally. I think that the US definitely does not benefit from the talent around CONCACAF, and Canada now becoming this actual world stage player is definitely a boon for us as a national team. And then I guess at the same time we see Mexico starting to drop a little bit, but that's a topic for another day. Carlos, do you have any more questions, or should we get into our rapid fire session?
We can get into that in just a second. I will say, Whoops, that one of my favorite defenders in the world today, I think he still captains Haiti, Ricardo Ade.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
plays for my the team that my dad and I are huge fans of back in Ecuador, where my family is from. Just an awesome defender.
yeah.
He's good company to be in if you end up one day putting on that shirt for Haiti. Yeah, so I could talk so much about him. No disrespect to my Rowdies defenders, I love them to death. But he's a beast, man. He's a great defender. Yeah. Okay, James, let's absolutely jump into these rapid fire questions. I'm sure we have the heavy hitting questions here saved for the end, if I'm not
mistaken. Exactly. So, Whoops, I will just start this the way that we usually do. I generally start by asking, who was your favorite player growing up, your biggest influence, and then who was your favorite team growing up?
So my favorite player is Neymar Jr. I wish I could play like him, but I can't. His abilities are too high. But yeah, Neymar Jr. is my favorite player, and my favorite team is Real Madrid.
Gotcha. I remember when Neymar was first coming onto the scene, he was a Santos player before he moved over to Europe. And there was this video that was going around when my friends and I were in college where he does this step over that I to this day, I still don't actually know how, like, where his feet were around the ball. It's some highlight reel that it makes the rounds every couple months or something. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I was like, I don't get it. I don't even, this is not even the sport that I grew up playing. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Okay, I have so many questions, James. Where do I even go from here? Whoops, you're in Tampa Bay now, the greatest region in the world, greatest beaches in the world, fantastic Cuban food, just good vibes in Tampa Bay. I'm in Arlington, Virginia now, and I miss Tampa all the time. But tell me, what's one thing that you've heard of in Tampa, that food and activity, something you just really want to try while you have your time here in the area?
I mean, I think you say it a little bit, is the beaches. I want to see how it is. A lot of people come here in Tampa, especially for that. So I think, with that weather, I'm going to be able to go pretty often during the season. But yeah, I'm excited to go see how the beaches are here.
Absolutely. I'll ask you this too. While we mentioned hockey earlier, what was your favorite hockey team growing up? Did you care about hockey at all? Or was it always soccer?
Montreal Canadiens, obviously.
Yeah,
of course.
That's fair. I think it's funny that you mentioned, you said earlier, you mentioned you're from Canada and you associate it with hockey more than soccer, and you don't really think about Canada and you think of soccer. I think it's so funny because I think a lot of that same rhetoric can be applied to Tampa when you mention hockey. Mm-hmm. You think Tampa, Florida, and people are like, hockey? You play hockey down there?
Yeah.
The Lightning are so good every year, and folks are playing hockey more and more down here too. I think it's really interesting how in one of the sunniest cities in the world, you have so many hockey players. So if you love hockey, there's definitely not a lack of it down here. And I think there's plenty of Lightning Canadiens games every year too. So
yeah,
we get to one as well. James, any other rapid fire questions on your end? I got one more.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I do ask this question a lot as well. So I know that you mentioned a couple of good players that you grew up playing with, including Ismail Kone, who's of course doing incredible things right now. But I wanted to ask you, who is the best player that you've ever either played with or against in your career?
I mean, when I was in Montreal, I did the preseason with the first team, and Victor Wanyama was there. So I think that's a pretty good shot. I think. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, Victor Wanyama has a very good reputation as a professional, so I think that's a very good shout, personally.
Love it. Love it. I'll give you my last question, Woobs. Now we are, a month away still from the first Rowdies home match. Still at least 3, if I'm not mistaken, away matches before then. Rather strange start to the year with the hurricane and the renovations to Al Lang, but it is what it is, obviously. I want to ask you this. Obviously, you haven't had the chance to really, experience the Al Lang home atmosphere and the beauty of playing over there with the sunset. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What can you tell fans who are, I don't know, maybe there's a couple people out there listening to this podcast and they're like, I don't know if I want to go to that game against Loudoun to start the year, but maybe Woobs can convince me if he tells me the right thing. Now, what's something you would tell the fan who's thinking about going to that first game to hype him up?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot about that atmosphere here in Tampa when the Rowdies play. So I also saw videos, and in the locker room, everyone is excited already to play that game. The whole club is excited, us as a player, but also the coaching staff, everyone. So I think everyone should come. Like you said, with the sunset. I think it's perfect, and the atmosphere. I know I saw it. I've heard of it, and I know the atmosphere gonna be electric. And if everyone comes, give us that 12 man, that energy. We're gonna put up a good game, score goals, keep the clean sheet, and finish the game with a win. That's for sure.
That's awesome. So many legendary moments in our not so long time in Al Lang. So hopefully some more on the horizon. April 12th against Loudoun, by the way. That's the official time, 7:30 p.m. Get your tickets for that one. Not getting paid for this, but you should go check out that one. Check out Woobs and the rest of the Rowdies. James, anything else on your end?
I was gonna ask a little bit longer, but I'll keep this one short. How would you make the best poutine if you were making it the way that you wanted it?
Okay.
Good question.
You have the fries, the cheese, the brown sauce. What I like to put is you can put chicken over it. I also like to put pork over it. And then you can also put it's like chipotle mayo, and you can also put Italian sausage.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that would be my go-to poutine.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, pretty good.
Carlos,
In Montreal, there's a restaurant. It's called La Banquise, where they might have more than 100 different poutine, and it's really good.
Hell yeah.
There,
Hell yeah.
Interesting.
When I was over there in December, I took a skiing lesson for the first time out in this is on the way to like Mont Tremblant, I think. Stopped at a McDonald's on the way.
Yeah.
Because I'm an American and I love chicken nuggets, and I'm going to stop when I see it. But there was a side option there for buffalo chicken poutine at the McDonald's, James.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously good. I was like, I would pay so much to have this in our silly little McDonald's wherever in Tampa. But great opinions there. Maybe we should use that as a tailgate food before that.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Think about it.
Yeah, we'll put that forth to the supporters groups, and we'll see how we can get that going. But Woobs, thank you so much for joining us. As always, it's great talking to Rowdies players, and it's great getting to know new Rowdies players, especially for us. It gives more than just a name and a face. Now we can have a background and an understanding, and I think that all of the fans will appreciate that. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you to you guys. It was really appreciated.
And that was our interview with Woobens Pacius. Jeez, we just learned this, Carlos. We just learned this, and I'm still messing it up. Yeah, just stick with Woobs. Just stick with Woobs. That's going to make it easier for me and everybody else involved, I think. But very good interview. I love learning about guys' backgrounds, and Woobs has a very interesting background for all of us with the Canadian Premiership playing time there, and obviously coming off an injury, gets really good minutes and really good stats for Huntsville. I think that this is going to be a good signing.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor and watch his highlight reels. Get a look at that half volley that we just talked about.
Yeah.
It's a beauty. And he's got some great goals for Forge and for Huntsville. So there's some good highlights for him in there. And like I said, I was gassing him up before we started chatting with him. There's just a great ceiling with him this season. I hope he's able to reach it with us very, very soon. Lots to offer. I think he is very much a Cal Jennings type of player, and I think he'll be able to kind of fill in those boots rather naturally because they have very similar play styles. But he's bigger, and I think he's even a bit quicker, if you can believe that. So I think there's a lot of potential to not only build on, to not only fill in what we're missing right now, where we thought we were missing in Cal Jennings' departure, but build on what we have. So there's some really, really great potential. So thanks to him for joining us. This was a really great chat. And James, let's jump into this game against Tulsa and hopefully talk about what he can do against this squad.
Yes, if we see Woobens Pacius score against Tulsa, Carlos, I think that we can say that is the RBLR bump, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a few of those last year. We had a few RBLR bumps last season. So let's make this another one. Absolutely.
So this upcoming weekend, Saturday at 8 p.m. to be specific, the Rowdies will take on FC Tulsa from One OK Field in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They won their first game of the season away 1-0 over Phoenix Rising. That is a big result. Obviously, just like us, I would say that it is something where it's the first game of the season, but pretty good going away to Phoenix and beating them. That's not bad. At least we lost away from home, I guess. In net in this game, they had Johan Peñaranda. They had a 3-4-3 lineup with Arthur Rogers, A.B. Sissoko, and Lamar Batista at the back. Harvey St. Clair, Giordano Coley, Boubacar Diallo, and Owen Dam in the midfield. Up top, Stefan Stojanovic, Taylor Calera, and Alex Dalu. Dalu was the one who scored the lone goal, and it was unassisted. I just wanted to point out really quickly, they have also brought in recently Brian Dowd on loan from Chicago Fire. He is a goalkeeper, very good in the college ranks. I wouldn't be too surprised if he overtook Johan Peñaranda. I don't know if that'll be this weekend. Obviously, we do not have the access that Tulsa has for their own training sessions, so we will see how it plays out. And I wanted to highlight again, Boubacar Diallo is the son of former Tampa Bay Mutiny player Mamadou Diallo. So that's kind of cool. Carlos, I believe you know Stefan Stojanovic. If you would like to give us any shout outs here.
Yeah, I was going to throw that in there. Absolutely. I'll never forget that goal, Stefan, if you somehow come across this podcast, which I'll probably text to you. So that's probably how you're going to come across it. He scored that wonder goal my sophomore year against Providence in the Big East final at Georgetown. Just the most limbs I've seen in a soccer game since the Rowdies Louisville comeback in the conference final. Just an absolute insane atmosphere, college soccer. And Stefan's a goat, great guy. He's settling in at Tulsa, which I'm really happy for him for. I'm glad he's getting minutes over there, and I'm sure he's going to find great form over there sooner rather than later. I just hope it's not in this one against the Rowdies this weekend. But yeah, he's really talented. They have a great talented squad, top to bottom here. Just a really, really solid Western Conference team. I'm not sure this is a team that necessarily competes for the top of the Western Conference, but honestly, it's kind of so open after Sacramento and maybe New Mexico. It's pretty open over there. So I would expect them to certainly be fighting for the top, if nothing else. So Stefan, I love you to death. You're one of my favorite college strikers of all time, obviously, because you scored that one. But I don't know, just save the goals for after this one. James, I do like our odds in this one. It's been a while since we went out to Tulsa to play a matchup over there. By while, I mean, 2 years ago? So I do remember the field being pretty questionable. So I'm not looking forward to having these back-to-back questionable fields to open the season. I'll tell you that much right now. But other than those external factors, I really like our matchup on paper here. I like how we stack up against these guys. I think our back line will stand up really well to their attack and their midfield. And I think we'll control a lot of this game too. Not necessarily as much as we did against Las Vegas. I think Tulsa will come out a bit more, but I think we can expect to have a lot of the ball in this one too. And that's my early prediction based on where we are and a little bit I know about the rest of Tulsa. So jump into a prediction, James, or do you want to add in any more analysis here?
There's literally one more thing that I want to point out. Their sporting director right now is Caleb Patterson-Sewell. If anybody knows that name, he was involved with Memphis previously. If you remember Memphis last year, they did pretty well. So yeah, he has a pretty good background, at least in terms of his management. He was also a player before, but the fact that he's over here in Tulsa, I think that bodes well for them overall. Hopefully, of course, just like Carlos said, not in this upcoming game. All right. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump into the predictions. And Carlos, I will let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I think we're going to get our first shutout of the season on this one. I really liked how our back line looked in the past game. I don't think we can expect another type of error that we had, another Las Vegas type of error. So I think we'll get our shutout if our back line plays as well as I think they can. And I think we get 2 goals from our attack. Let's get Arteaga and Woobs on the scoreboard here in this one. Actually, scratch that. It's going to be a Woobs goal and an Ollie goal. Yeah. 2 new Rowdies getting on the score sheet to start the year. We'll win this one 2-0.
All right. Well, joining you in the wins column this year, or this week, I should say, is Eureka. I am going with a draw this week because I guess we're a little more subdued from the week before, but we'll get back to the hype in the future. I am going with a 2-2 draw to be specific, while Eureka has chosen a 1-0 draw. Yeah. So, or excuse me, 1-0 win. You can't draw 1-0, can you?
Yeah. This back-to-back travel is going to be tough, James. I know, we obviously talked about these 4 away games in a row to start the year just being a challenge because of the travel alone, no matter who we're playing. Las Vegas put up a great game. Tulsa is not, a Tulsa of maybe a few years ago. Tulsa's built up slowly into a pretty good-looking team this year, I think. Last year they were pretty solid. This year I think they're getting better. So we have a challenging few games on the road to start the year. Ignoring the teams themselves, just the travel back and forth is pretty ridiculous. I mean, you were in Las Vegas, they're back in the Tampa Bay area now, and then they're going to fly away back out west to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's a challenge.
Probably not many direct flights either.
Yeah. So this is baptism by fire for some of the new guys. We'll see how they live up to, or how they handle that sort of travel and that pressure and whatnot. I'm excited for the 6 games at home in a row because I think we can stack up points there. We can't really afford to drop any points with those games. So let's take advantage of it. Let's steal a few points on the road here and come back with a W.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that will do it for our preview. Carlos, is there anything we want to add to the extra time segment after after the review, interview, and preview?
Yes. I just want to mention some of the scores around the league from opening weekend because there were some notable ones. Just give you a couple highlights. Louisville started their season in a really, really impressive fashion. Not that anybody expected otherwise, but impressive to go to Charleston and win 2-1 away, obviously. Charleston went down a man in the 70th minute. Louisville capitalized 2 minutes later and win this one 2-1. So again, I think these are the 2 teams we'll be competing with for the top of the Eastern Conference, pending, us being up there with them. I think other than us, hopefully, these are the clear 2 top teams in the Eastern Conference. Great matchup over there. Lexington won their first USL championship game 2-0 at home against Hartford. Keep an eye on them. I wasn't really taking them particularly seriously. Hartford's not an elite squad by any means, but still an impressive 2-0 win to open the year. Miami's still bad. They opened the year with a 2-0 loss to Detroit at home. Any other highlights here that I wanted to mention? Loudoun opening the season with a win 3-1 in Birmingham. That was the one I wanted to mention here. I always say this because Loudoun always seems to kind of have a couple surprising results at the beginning of the year. This is a new Loudoun, and to keep an eye on them, take them seriously. We recently got swept by Loudoun. I don't really remember if that was last year or the year before that. So I think we've come to appreciate that Loudoun's gotten better as a club. And they're certainly trying to be taken more seriously now. 3-1 away to Birmingham, who we've considered a top team in the East this year, is impressive stuff. So maybe humbling Birmingham a bit after the high preseason predictions, but a good result for them in Loudoun. And other than that, Sacramento wins 2-1 in a good matchup against New Mexico United as well. Those are 2 top teams in the West, if not the 2 top teams in the West.
Yeah.
So Neil Collins getting a win in his opening game with Sacramento. A couple other entertaining games around the league. Take a look at the highlights. Some fun stuff happening in the USL world.
And while we're on it, Naples drew over 4,000 people to their first ever game, which was a 1-1 home draw. Very interesting. Carlos, I don't know about you. I did not predict it, but good enough for Naples, man.
Yeah, this is, by the way, it's just so much fun. And I'm going to plug this again while we're in extra time. Naples needs to be a game that Rowdies fans show up at.
Yes.
In droves. Like, absolutely. It's such a close away trip. And, like, if we want to be taken seriously as a club and as a fan base, we need to be able to travel well to such a close matchup here. So they're selling really, really well in terms of tickets. Obviously, 4,000 plus people for the first game is really, really impressive in USL League One. Congrats to them. I hope we get, I don't know, like, is it ambitious to say like just south of like 1,000 people down there? Is that ambitious? Like, I know it sounds like a lot.
It's literally July 4th, so we should be able to do whatever we want.
I know. It sounds ambitious, but like, man, like it's not a far trip at all. Sign up for that bus in the Ralph's Mob Discord, and everyone else should just be going down there in droves. And I think we can make a really, really great turnout just because of the 4th of July holiday. There's not anything going on. Make the trip down there, make it a weekend, and have a good time. Ambitious, but let's be serious. Let's get down there and have a good time, and yeah, welcome Naples to the league in style.
That's part of RBLR Rowdies hype. We are going to make that our goal. That is one of our many ambitions this year.
I live in Arlington, Virginia now, and I'm making my way down there. I already committed to it. I'm taking, well, not that I have to take the time off for 4th of July, but that's the point. None of us have to. You know what I mean? Unless you work at this, particularly strenuous job. Get down there and have a good time.
There we go. All right. Well, that should do it tonight. It's a packed show, listeners, but thank you so much for tuning in. And we appreciate, of course, when you do that. Please follow us on all the social medias that you can. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLRJamesK. You can use the hashtag AskRBLR, or you can reach Carlos at
CarlosTBA10 on Twitter. Follow me. It's back to Rowdies content. Georgetown basketball is basically coming to a conclusion this week. Hopefully not after one game in the Big East tournament, but we'll see how it goes. Follow me, and I will be throwing propaganda on my content about why you should be at that Naples game. Because truly, I think if there's one game we all need to be at, it's that away game, just to really, really make our mark on the west coast of Florida.
There we go. We have continued with RBLR Rowdies hype, and that is how we're ending it tonight. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. You can get the full experience on YouTube. We are also on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple, and Google Podcasts. We are everywhere you are. Please just check us out. Now, for one game in the books, and we're leaving it behind, and another one coming up that we surely will win. Come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.